Hello, thank you for coming out. Talk about tax incentives in California. I think maybe got a lot of different organizations represented here, and we're going to obviously be talking a lot about the different, get into the nitty gritty of the things that your organizations are doing. But just so that everybody's orientated, let's find out a little bit. We'll start with you, Larry. Tell us about your organization.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Larry LeBeau. I'm the co-founder and executive director at NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. For those of you who don't know us, I always like to introduce us as a mini Sundance Institute. So people always think of Sundance as a film festival. That's its most popular program. You could think of us very much the same. Most people in Los Angeles know us as a film festival. We play films from all around the world, so about 30% international films, 20% of our films come from other parts of the US, and about 50% of our films come from California-based filmmakers. But we have a bunch of programs that we do throughout the year to support the international film community in LA. We have a grants program called New Narratives. We run and created the Stars TV Writers Program for people looking to break into TV writing. We do a lot. And we have several of our filmmakers here, and we'll be taking them to Italy following this to play their movies from LA in Italy. So.
And we have a commissioner with us. We have the commissioner with us. Colleen, please tell us.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Colleen Bell. I am the director of the California Film Commission. And the California Film Commission, we work under the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. I was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2019, and we provide a range of services. Basically, like, we want to be and are a one-stop shop for entertainment production and filmmakers, whether you're in our tax credit program or not. So we do all permitting for state-owned facilities, buildings, lands, and we have a vast location library. We do location assistance. We administer our film and TV tax credit program. And we also do a lot of troubleshooting. So constantly called from projects who need us to intervene and help to make sure that they can get the shot that they're looking to get.
And Monty, you're here representing two organizations. Let's start with FilmSF.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm Manisha Fatta, also go by Mani, and I'm the executive director of FilmSF, also known as the San Francisco Film Commission, and we facilitate production activity in San Francisco. So if anyone wants to come and shoot in the city, they come and work with our office. We're like the official film office of the city and county, and we support our local production community, which in San Francisco, we have a vast media ecosystem, from Dolby and Lucasfilm to creative ad agencies, and a really thriving, crew and talent base in San Francisco. And I'm also on the board of FLICS, which is Film Liaisons in California statewide. And I'm also here with our vice president, Cassandra Hesseltine, right here. And we're a statewide network of film commissioners across the state that are really here to advocate for our industry in California, to retain our industry in California. And we're a network of already 40 film offices. And we support with locations, permitting, again, an advocacy group for our incredible state. And so that's some of the work that we do. And I'm happy we'll continue talking about our role in the state of California.
Before we start, there's lots of specifics to get into, lots of things, but reporting from New York on this story from a little bit of a distance, I wanted to see if I'm right about something, put this in perspective. It feels to me, especially as it relates to incentives in California, politically, there's been a shift. It was very easy for opponents to write this off as, why should I give Disney a 35% of their budget back on a Marvel movie? And it feels like in the last year, 2 years, there's been a shift, not only in terms of how Hollywood talks about this and got they've always talked about this, but politically oriented, that these are jobs, and we're losing these jobs and we're losing these films. And it feels like that has been a big part of what's shifted in California in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to speak to that. So we launched 4.0, our new iteration of our film and TV tax credit program. And as we were making our way through building this out, building the momentum, working with the governor and the governor's office and members of the legislature, we it, we're it's im- I felt a major shift among members who, if you had a member of the legislature who didn't have direct entertainment production in their jurisdiction, they may feel disconnected to it. But we continue to shift that narrative. These are jobs. This is a jobs program. The program is highly targeted and focused. It's put into place to create as many jobs, sustain as many jobs, and generate as much economic activity as possible. We're a different kind of program than a program like Georgia, which is just uncapped and rolling, and you apply and you get in. Ours is a very important economic development tool. And to your point, I think that people are starting to understand that. And unfortunately, it was because there was a hardship and very, very difficult time of people out of work without those paychecks in their pocket doing the work that they love to do that is so important for the identity and the brand of California. So that shift, and we had bipartisan support supporting 4.0. We appreciate all the advocacy that took place in the community in order to get this done. But I do feel that narrative has shifted. And now we're seeing with these new candidates running for governor, as Governor Newsom will turn out, this is an important piece of their platform of building off of the momentum of which we built.
Yeah, I've been shocked how much, because I think there's also a thing, and it's the history of Hollywood, right? It's always attracted from around the globe the biggest talent, has the best facilities, and there was a little bit of, I think, of like, that's enough, right? That's that, and clearly it's not anymore. And I've been shocked how much it's gone from a take this for granted to, it seems like, again, and this is just someone that reads the New York Times every day, it feels like candidates have to speak on this. Yeah. Your mayor's election, like everything, it feels like this is now like healthcare or the war nationally. You have to talk about this if you're running for office.
Absolutely, and they should be talking about it. Again, like I said, the incentive program is not an outlay of taxpayer dollars, it's an investment. And this is a tried and true investment. And it keeps people working, and again, as I mentioned, generates significant economic activity, and also all the small and ancillary businesses that support entertainment production. We're seeing a major uptick in production taking place in California because of our new expanded and modernized program. So,
well, let's get into 4.0. 4.0, I believe, went into effect in July. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so July. So we're approaching a year of this. The big headline thing is you went from 330 million to 750 million. But let's talk about some of the specifics here. One of the most interesting to me is 40% to television shows that you are trying to get back to the state, right? So it's a little bit of an elevated thing to lure people back. That seems to be one of the big headlines.
Yeah, we launched in July, our first application window. We had 400% increase in applications. So, I mean, that was a real indicator that the changes we had made were working. And we had decision makers who had stopped looking at California, were not only taking a second look at California, were choosing California to shoot their TV show and or their film project. We got major tentpole projects, which we hadn't been able to capture for a while, coming back into our program. We expanded categories to include half hour, which was an obvious one to me, but which is terrific. Large scale competition and animation, increased our percentages, increased our caps. So we're sitting in a good position now. Since launching, we have close to 29,000 cast and crew jobs. We've permit applications have increased dramatically. So the momentum is happening. We didn't anticipate that there would be a initial spike because projects that come into our program have 180 days to start principal photography. But it's been slow and steady, and it's happening.
A little inside baseball. One of the ways with IndieWire you can see when something gets greenlit is they got to apply for the California tax credit early. So that's how you find out when Tarantino's getting ready to shoot or something. Because if they want that money, you got to find out. It's usually the first tell. And now publicists know they got to be prepared for the fact that we're scanning that list. Yeah. So help me understand a little bit how, so the base is 35 now, how that could be stackable. What does that mean? What are the other ways that you can get that up beyond if you're relocating in a television show?
Yeah. Well, I'll just give you the basics for us. So out of zone, that's an important one. And local higher labor wage. That's also another, but so that's how you can get from 35 to 40. But I think also you wanted to talk about stackable San Francisco, which is unique.
Yeah.
Has an incentive that can stack on to our incentive program.
Yeah, Colleen, I can speak to that. Did you want to do the segue?
Seen in San Francisco.
Yes.
Your mayor signed an update in February.
Yep.
Kind of in the way that California did. So what is new in San Francisco with what your mayor just signed?
So we actually have had this incentive for 20 years. Mayor Newsom at the time created this incentive, which we, again, since 2006, we were actually 3 years older than the state incentive. And, to date, we've supported 48 projects, $7 million we gave out, and that's $96 million has been spent in San Francisco as a result of our incentive. But it was antiquated, right? We needed to sort of look at, again, how competitive the industry is, how can we retain production in San Francisco? And so Mayor Lurie, who, came into this administration a year ago, was really instrumental in getting us the support. Our Board of Supervisors unanimously approved $1 million cash rebate. So it updated, and we're actually giving money back on what you spend in San Francisco. So it's up to 20% back on labor and expenditure in the city, and then still retaining our 100% back on your city fees. So you can shoot at the Palace of Fine Arts, the De Young Museum, when you think of Vertigo, the film, and shooting there. Those are city fees because those are city buildings. So, it's huge. It's huge for us because, again, you can stack this with the state tax credit. You have to shoot at least, and we shift the qualifications so that we can capture projects that, want to shoot at least 5 days of principal photography. So we lowered the threshold so we can capture projects that want to come maybe for a shorter period of time, but are not just coming for the beauty shots of like 1 or 2 days. So we can at least get a minimum of a good week worth of work. And you have to spend a certain amount in San Francisco in order to qualify.
That flexibility seems to be really important because when incentives really became a big thing 25, 30 years ago, there was a high threshold. They're like, I just New York, come to New York or don't. You gotta like do a certain number of days on stage. You gotta do a certain percentage of your shoot. And it feels like, no, I think what you're saying is we'd love to have you in San Francisco for 5 days to do your exteriors.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of a hard initially to think because again, went from 55 to 65%. To lowering it to the 5, but we put the minimum spend in San Francisco to say, oh, okay, let's ensure that your dollars are being spent in San Francisco. So if your project budget is under $3 million, you have to spend $250,000. We wanted to continue to support independent filmmakers. And if your project's over $3 million, then you have to spend half of $500,000 in San Francisco. So we still wanted to make sure your spend was in the city. And a minimum of 5 days of principal photography, again, to capture projects that may be shooting across the state. So maybe they're going to be basing out of LA, but come and do at least, again, 5 days in the city so we can keep a production here. And then again, we're going to see what, if it needs to be modified, how we're going to adjust this. But already we have 4 projects that have applied since it launched officially in March. Season 3 of A Man on the Inside has committed. They're shooting, at least a month in San Francisco. And Morgan Sackett, the executive producer of that series, was really instrumental in getting our incentive passed, and his support and helping sort of think about this incentive and how we can drive more business to San Francisco. And also importantly, how we also retain all kinds of production. We really support independent filmmaking. The last several years, a lot of independent films, and I know Larry can speak to this too, but more independent filmmakers have been using our incentive and been filming in San Francisco.
Yeah, Larry, that seems like the key, right? Is like if we look at Canada and we lose like almost all of our horror films to Canada and a lot of indies. It's the stackable aspect, right? It's the local, it's the federal, and what San Francisco is. That's going to take advantage of this. Is there, and I am thinking about independent film here, but is there movement to get other stackable aspects of this so that maybe we can have more
I
indies?
think what San Francisco has done is key. So LA has been largely out of the game as it comes to those conversations. And, we had over the last 6 months a movement in LA, which ultimately led to lowering permit fees a little bit, which I think saving people $600 or $1,200 on a feature film production is not really going to move the needle to an independent film, making it possible to shoot an independent film in a certain jurisdiction. We just had a filmmaker who had to leave California to shoot a feature under $1 million because they received several $100,000 incentive in not New Mexico, in Mexico, near Monterey. So what we're working on now with the County of LA is last July of 2025, Catherine Barker, who's one of our county supervisors, and Lindsay Horvath, who's another county supervisor, they introduced a motion that directed our Department of Economic Opportunity to raise $80 to $100 million privately to fund film and TV tech startups. It was pretty shocking to hear that in a time where, the production ecosystem in LA County is definitely not great right now. And you hear in the news every other day how, people are leaving LA County and how production is suffering in LA County. So we've been doing a ton of advocacy. Actually, there's a lot of people here in this room who have been part of that advocacy with us in LA County. And so Barker's office has agreed that they would like to reintroduce a new motion to redirect those funds. And if they do it in the way that we have communicated they should do it, I think you mentioned you've given away, since the program started in San Francisco, $7 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7
So if they were to take that 80 to 100 million and they were to endow or put that into a trust, earning, let's even just say on a low end on U.S. Treasuries, FDIC insured securities, 10-year CDs, they would generate 4% a year on $100 million. That's $4 million a year of cash grants in LA County.
Yeah.
And if you capped that for, let's say, $1 to $1.5 million feature films, you're now talking about anywhere from a 20 to 15% local incentive in LA on 20 feature films a year. 20 feature films. That would make a huge difference. I think one of the things that's going to be key is if this goes forward, which I think if Barker's office kind of keeps their commitment to it, it should, and DEO keeps their commitment to it, it should move forward, will be that, they have certain qualifications, as California does, with a certain jobs ratio of what it's going to do in terms of minimums of how much people are going to be paid on set. Of course, there's going to be another thing we need to get past, which is what union agreements are going to be available for those productions locally, because that's something that I know many of the people in this room are in the DGA, and they're going to want to sign contracts for their productions, and they're going to want to sign SAG-AFTRA contracts. So I think thinking about all those things in LA is really important, but just making sure that funding stays committed to independent low budget productions, because being able to fund 20 of those I think is impactful. But once you start scaling up in terms of budget, you're only going to be able to fund a few things with that money. And instead of drawing that $100 million down over 5 years and injecting $20 million a year into production, I think you have an opportunity to make it sustainable and perpetually sustainable if you endow it and just give away $4 million a year.
The grants in the nonprofits are so important in terms of building some kind of sustainability for coming up. I mean, Cannes is the perfect place to talk about this. Eliminate the American filmmakers and go to all these people mid-career. They all were funded with grants, with shorts. There's a whole infrastructure of how you come up, and then when you're in your 30s and your 40s and you're the top, you get to come to Cannes. And it's remarkable because, we're IndieWire. We love Brady Corbet and Sean Baker, but That's it's not sustainable to do it. It's not sustainable to make 8 indies anymore, like Sean did. Unless you got daddy's money. Like that's not. So that kind of infrastructure, in addition to the stackable, seems to be so key to LA being also where you go in your 20s if you want to make a film, right?
I mean, I think we have to recognize that we are in a global creative economy, right? So it would have been unheard of maybe 15 years ago that Parasite was winning Best Picture and Squid Games was the #1 stream show on Netflix in Korean language, right? But we are Bad Bunny, #1 artist, right? But we are in a very different cultural landscape where, American culture and American pop culture especially, it was the global dominator of what we watched on screens and maybe what we listened to. But I think if we don't talk about the fact that today that culture has also shifted and globally, we want to be part of the global entertainment ecosystem. We want to celebrate. That's California's story. We want to celebrate international voices. We want to be rooted in the international community. So I think making sure that we're also in California saying, how do we work globally? How do we make sure that our partners in Italy know that we want to work with them, that our partners in Canada know that we want to work with them, and that we want to find ways to do it that benefit everybody in the ecosystem is really key. I mean, California has benefited from so many productions that have received Telefilm Canada money and vice versa, right? Like we have supported things that have been films that have previously, not anymore, received NEA grant funding. So I think thinking about things through that lens, instead of thinking only locally and only in California, is also really important.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that is Mexican filmmaker Michel Franco, who is, premiered a lot of films here at Cannes, has, he had a project 2 years ago in San Francisco called Dreams, and he was actually going to shoot it in Texas and Mexico. And the principal ballet dancer for SF Ballet was in his film, and he decided to shoot it in San Francisco. And part of that moving the needle was our incentive. And, and that experience, it's starring Jessica Chastain, Dreams, and it premiered last year at Berlinale, last February, not this past festival. But that's where, an amazing example of a co-production that we've been able to attract and retain that kind of independent filmmaking in San Francisco. And again, his experience in San Francisco and in the state is like now his next feature that he's, going to be producing and directing is going to be in San Francisco. So I think there's this opportunity where, again, I think Larry's speaking to, it's like we want to support our homegrown talent, but there's opportunity for international filmmakers seeing the possibilities of shooting in California that I think, and being able to use our sort of stackable incentives is moving the needle.
When we talk about stackable, we got the state. Hopefully more cities and regions can follow SF. And we got the grant. I'm fascinated by the fact, because I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime, there's now real discussion about a federal. Colleen, do you think, I know Senator Schiff is really doing it. President Trump does not seem opposed to it, although he seems to think a tariff's going to work. But if someone could convince him that a federal incentive is a tariff, we might get it, right? I mean, where are we with this?
Well, I do know that he has appointed, his 3 envoys for Hollywood ambassadors.
And
I think
you guys
he calls
have
them.
their ears, right?
So
you know those 3 people, right? I'm asking. I'm reporting now. You guys. They have Hollywood's ear. Like, you can speak to these 3 people, because apparently there's only 3 people he's talking to about this.
Well, I can definitely share that one of his envoys is more active than the others, or appears that way to me, and has reached out, and I've had a couple of meetings with them. A federal incentive, to your point, stackable, absolutely. I mean, we're unbeatable if we had a federal incentive that stacks on top of our already now 35%, 40%. So, listen, it's all. I think there's a lot happening in Washington right now, and it's probably. I don't know where the focus is in terms of where this is in the process, and these types of things do take some time. Although I do know that it's something that is being considered, and from our point of view, absolutely, this would be great. Stack it on top of California. But as I was doing a major deep dive in runaway production in California, it's loss of our market share, what we needed to do, not only to curb runaway production, but to grow production in the state, to future-proof it. I don't know that we're proofed it yet, but we're curbing it. But again, the whole focus is to grow production. But the U.S. market share has decreased too. So I think this is the administration's response of recognizing, okay, you know what, something has to be done on the federal level as well.
Yeah, just if you guys just did the math real quick. So Canada has the country, they have essentially a federal, but then all of these provinces have their own. And then with the exchange rate, that's a triple hit. That's really hard to compete with.
It's exponentially more, because then also you have to recognize that not only does Canada have the federal, the provincial, but a lot of times there's specifically like a Toronto grant as well from the city or from the county. And then in addition, the most important thing we haven't talked about are co-production treaties. So Canada has a co-production treaty with Italy, right? And so then they can go get 2 federal incentives. Okay, so if the U.S. is going to introduce a federal incentive, it also has to be thinking about co-production treaties with other countries, because you're not really going to compete even federally until you start thinking about that. I mean, Colombia has with Panama, Spain has with every country in the EU, right? So you really have to be, I think, thinking about that if you're talking about a federal incentive as well, if we want to maximize competitiveness of what we can do here.
California is almost the same size as France. That's how big it is. It's like up to 10% smaller. And I know people know the big cities, but I mean, the landscape is just vast. And then obviously there's all these local issues and the zoning and the permits. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about FLICS and trying to build that up in terms of being a hub, so that, yes, 2 regions might be competing for a production. Maybe the better way to think about it is, we'll go do the desert over here, we'll go do this, and how to kind of make things easier.
Yeah, I mean, we've been around for over 30 years as a statewide network, and we really sort of serve as the advocacy arm of the state to retain production and support, and want to be sort of this one-stop shop hub. If somebody is coming to shoot in California, how our 40 offices work together to ensure that we keep that production, we can support them with permitting and location services. And I think one production that comes to mind is One Battle After Another, which feels like very much a California film that really goes from starting at Humboldt, that shot 10 days, and then went down the entire state, right? And that was, and again, a state tax credit project, won Best Picture. And that came from a director who was like, I'm going to shoot in California, and how important it is to keep that production here. And I think for all of us, I see as our statewide network, I mean, these are all my colleagues. I don't feel like we're competitors. We're all offer something so unique and different landscapes, right? From the redwoods to something so cinematic as San Francisco, to where our production hub is in Los Angeles, to the beaches. I mean, it feels really unmatched. I mean, I'm a Californian, born and raised, and I don't think there's anything like it around the world. We all have our just distinct landscapes when we think about what each of our countries have to offer. Again, I just think California is so special and unique. And I think, again, all of us in our respective areas have something special to offer. And again, we're the advocates and fighters for our whole state and our respective regions, right? And I think that's what just makes California so unique in that way.
I like to say that we're a continent's worth of landscapes in one state, and we truly are. Just the diversity of the topography it's extraordinary. And because we do have this network with Film Liaisons in California, you can come and shoot desert, mountain, redwood, small town, big city, ocean.
You guys should have never lost that
It's-
to New Mexico.
Lost what?
You should have never lost those movies to New Mexico. You
Hey.
know, it's like there's so the West out there is all California and the mountains. It would have been, you know, it's important that is connected and that people
Yeah.
are encouraged to do that, but also that it's easy to do it. And like I imagine part of it's even locations, right? Like
Yeah.
where
and
can I find this or where can I find that?
Yeah, and I think the talent also is like, we know that they're in Los Angeles. They want to be able to be close to home. What's great about, coming, it's like they can be anywhere in the state for less than an hour flight. People love being able to spend a weekend in San Francisco, right? When talents and crews have to come up to San Francisco, if they're not already there, they're like, oh, I'd love to be able to like hang out in the city. Or in San Diego or up north. Like they want to be able to stay in the state. And I think that's what, it's important for us to retain that and not take it for granted moving forward. Like, okay, let's make sure we're not losing productions. And we know there's a ton of, content that's been created. We're not going to keep everything. Not everything's going to be set in California, but the projects that are, we need to make sure that they're staying here.
As we have to wrap it up, thank you, the three of you. Thank you so much. And go California. We're rooting for you.
Thanks,
Yes,
Chris.
thank you.